Good afternoon, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me okay. If someone wants to say hi, that'd be great.
Hi, Chris.
Thanks, Andrew. Thank you. My name is Chris Oglesby from Kick ICT, and this afternoon you're joining one of a series of webinars we've been running around the Sun complementary products. These are products from our partner Professional Advantage. We've covered quite a few over the last few weeks and months, but today we're going to be focusing on the B4B application. It's all around secure payments out of Sun. Now, whether you're doing international payments or domestic payments, this brings both of them together. It has a very large library of bank formats, so whatever your bank you're dealing with, we can certainly accommodate that. For standard payment types like CHAPS, faster payments, BACS, etc. And the ideal thing is it's seamlessly integrated into Sun Systems itself. I want to give Andrew as much time as possible to demonstrate the product for you and answer any questions you've got. But this will be, as I say, the secure B4B payments and also remittances as well. So, Andrew, if you're ready, I can hand over to you. I think your screen has already been shared.
Thank you very much, Chris. Appreciate it.
I will go on mute in case I get into a coughing fit or something like that.
Thank you.
All over.
So, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for coming along today. And thank you for Kick for helping to arrange these sessions. I'm going to be talking today about the Professional Advantage B4B solution. As Chris says, this is a solution aimed at providing a secure payment portal out of your Sun Systems environment and dealing with many of the complexities of banking transaction processing. So being able to deal with different currencies, different payment formats, and bring it all together in one single platform. So Professional Advantage, for those of you who don't know us, have been around now for about 30 years, and we specialize in producing various extension and companion solutions for Sun Systems that increase functionality, provide focused functionality, or a different way of doing things within the Sun Systems environment. And the great thing about all of our solutions is they are fully integrated at the deepest level with your Sun Systems environment and are very supportable as you move forward through different versions of Sun Systems. So obviously that covers a number of areas, but today I'm focusing on the B4B payments and remittances in the cash management area. The solutions are available on-premise against your Sun Systems on-premise or in a private hosted environment where Sun Systems sits, or against the Sun Systems cloud as well. So you have a choice of deployments depending on how you wanted to approach this. And we work closely with Infor to ensure everything is aligned from a development and an integration point of view. The solution obviously sits in the area of payments, but cash management really covers payments, remittancing, and bank reconciliation, which is another of our solutions that will be available in another webinar that will be run in due course if anyone's interested in that. But where we're going to be focusing today is the generation of a payment batch within Sun Systems itself. So
Andrew, are you still with us?
Hi, Andrew. You have gone.
Sorry, apologies. I think I lost the connection there for a second, but I think I'm now back.
Yes, you are. Go ahead. Go ahead. Yep, go ahead. Scared us all to death, but go ahead.
I'm going to assume that the connection has re-established itself, so apologies about that. So once you've generated your payment batch within the Infor Sun Systems environment, this is where B4B steps in, and it's able to take the batch directly from Sun Systems and then associate it to the various different payment types that may be required to pay your suppliers, and also to transfer those funds and the actual payment instructions directly up to your banking solution, whichever bank that may be globally. Once you've done that, you may then want to manage your remittance generation and dispatch of remittances for those payments to your suppliers, and of course do this in a secure fashion across all three parts of this process. So this is the B4B process that we're looking at today. It definitely can work to increase your efficiency, removes the need for manual payments to be processed in the banking solution. It removes the need for you to manage the actual variety of banks that you may be dealing with. Organizations may have local banks, they may have foreign banks, they may have different needs of a payment type. So it could be a cross-border payment or a UK domestic payment, etc. And all of these things can be managed in one area. So it's increasing the efficiency there. It's migrating the risk to the system itself rather than your manual processes, and it's giving you secure connectivity to the bank where the bank supports that, and I'll go into that as we go forward. So it's done through easy steps as a process. First of all, you're generating your payments within Sun Systems, a very standard process. We then validate the payment file, and what this does is allows you to check and confirm that all of the payments that are being processed through B4B are mapped to a corresponding supplier bank account. All of those bank account details are correctly captured and meet the requirements of the type of payment that you're making. And additionally, B4B offers an improved and secure way of managing the bank details for your supplier. So as part of that validate payment process, it's actually checking to ensure that for a payment that maybe is being produced in GBP, it's got a corresponding payment bank account to pass that data to, that it meets that requirement for your bank. So if it's a local NatWest process, for example, the bank details are being captured to meet that requirement. Whereas if it was an overseas payment, maybe being generated as a SEPA file, that it would actually be checking for the corresponding foreign bank account as being correct using IBAN numbers and BIC numbers and things like this. Those bank detail data records can also be approved and validated as part of the process. So we have a secure approval process around the management of new bank details being added, amendments being made, etc. Once we've done that mapping, the system allows you to approve the process, send it on to your bank, and that can be done either through the generation of an output file, which you can then pick up and then upload to your banking system. And that file is in the format that the bank requires. And we have a very extensive library of different bank formats that allow us to generically send the type of payments to the bank in the format that they require. We can also produce new bank formats where potentially it's a bank that we haven't seen before, or if banks are changing their formats over time. So one of the big benefits of B4B is this library, the ability to out of the box handle many different types of payment and different banks globally. Once you've done that, you can then approve the payments at the bank if you're required to do that, and then obviously send your remittances from the B4B environment, and that picks up the supplier details, address details, and email and communication details from your Sun Systems environment in order to generate that remittance and send it by email. Another area that's important is secure transmission. So where we're sending data to the bank, we do have a number of options there. We can produce a file that is encrypted if the bank supports that using PGP encryption. And additionally, we can send it using a secure SFTP process using SSH keys and encryption protocols around that as well. So where the bank supports those types of process, we can certainly out of the box within B4B manage that encryption and SFTP connectivity to automate the transmission to the bank and making it a highly secure process. And all of this can reduce your risk of fraud. All data is synchronized with Sun Systems, so you have one master record in terms of your supplier information. We have full audit control and reports around management of the bank details, any changes that are made to those over time, and the approval processes that they've been through, along with the same processes in terms of reporting on your payment batches and where they are transmitted. We have a security matrix in the system, which allows us to control role-based security and segregate roles within B4B, meaning that user groups can be set up. Some users may be just there for validation or management of bank details. Others may be for generation or management of the payment processes or the remittancing, etc. So we can break up the roles and ensure that they are nicely segregated and to give you the maximum in both segregational security as well as system security in the way that works, alongside our sort of file-based and transmission security using SFTP and PGP encryption where that may be needed. So that's sort of an overview of the process for B4B and what it can provide as part of your solution. But what I'm going to do is we're going to jump out of here and I'm going to jump straight into the software and show you some of these processes in action at a basic level to give you an idea of what you could achieve there within B4B. So having just jumped to my web environment here, I'm actually running B4B through the web environment, although we can deploy this as a desktop option if you wanted to do that. And B4B is available to run in both Microsoft browsers and in Google Chrome, depending on your choice and what you use within your organization. I'm going to log into B4B using my PAS user. This is an administrative user with broad access, so that I can look at various different areas for you. But I could potentially be logging in as somebody who is only going to be able to make suggested changes to bank details or approve bank details or process payment, etc. And that's where the role-based security comes into play. So if I go and log in as the PAS user, this will then present me with the main screen of B4B, where I can go and have a look at various different bits of functionality. If we just orient ourselves in here, on the left-hand side, we have our main menu, and we have nodes in that. We can drop down and see the sub-menu elements to it. And depending on the security and the role, obviously different users would have access to different areas here, and they wouldn't be visible if you didn't have access to them, depending on how we design and configure the system. The main menu can be hidden just by using the hamburger option top left there. And what we can also do here from the file menu is go and jump between different business units within Sun Systems. So you can see here that I currently am looking at the PK1 business unit, but obviously we can configure B4B to work for many different business entities, set it up in different ways with different types of payment. Maybe you have a business unit that's dedicated to foreign transactions, one that's UK transactions. It really doesn't matter how you've configured that. B4B can be set up to meet that requirement. You'll also see that here we have the format code that I'm currently using within the system. So this is the UK LBM format. There are many different acronyms here for different banking formats, but that stands for the Barclays Net UK 3-day payments and faster payments. So this is the format you would use to transmit payments to a Barclays bank account for actioning, and it can include both UK 3-day and faster and next day payments. So that's the Barclays standard for that. And this is the format that we have decided to use in this case if I was using Barclays, although I could be using NatWest or any other bank globally that is supportable through this type of process. We can jump between those formats. So here I just have sort of only a few actually of the list of formats that we have available. We have a few hundred of these now actually over time. B4B has been around since the late 90s and has grown a great deal in terms of format support and richness of functionality over that time. So you can see that there's quite a good selection there. Obviously, we would talk to you about what it is you wanted to do, and you may potentially use multiple banks. So you may be needing different types of format to achieve that. But in this case, I'm set to use my Barclays Net 3-day at the moment as part of the processing. So a good place to just start in the system is to have a look at the bank detail records. So all bank details are maintained within the system. We can do this using our standard bank detail record, but we can also use third-party bank details, which is where we're bringing file data in from a non-Sun Systems-based source. So B4B does support the ability to bring in files for payroll systems and things like this that are separate to your Sun Systems environment. But in general, you are looking at standard bank details related to your Sun Systems records. And if I open this up, what we'll see is we have a drop down with a list of accounts that are set up within your Sun Systems business unit and defined within B4B. So for each supplier, we would have a record within here, and B4B will not process a payment through for that particular supplier unless it finds a corresponding bank detail set up correctly and fully approved within the system. So you move your bank detail management away from the Sun Systems record into B4B, and you are in a position that you can actually write back various elements of that record to Sun Systems if you wanted to as part of the process. However, the detail that you can capture within B4B, the validation and the control is significantly higher than that which you would see typically within the Sun Systems environment. So it's the obvious place to move your detail to, particularly as this is the system that's then going to process the data up to the bank in the correct format. So we have a look at one of these records, just 8101 in this case. You can see the name of the supplier. We can deal with sub-bank identifiers as well if you do have multiple sort of sub-entities around your banks for a particular supplier. And the details that we're capturing here are very basic UK bank details. So the bank account name, bank account number, and the sort code. We also have some other tabs, so payment and usage, for example. In here, we can set up transaction limits for particular payments around that particular supplier. We can have active date ranges for bank accounts. We can set up anything here that is supported based on the transmission when you are sending a file to Barclays for this particular type of payment. So this is linked to the payment format. So for Barclays and for faster and next day payments, you have to have certain records captured, and we are ensuring that they're captured and providing these fields in a validated fashion. If we were to put something in here that typically was not correct in relation to that format, so if I take a number off my sort code, it's then giving me an error. You can see it's highlighting the box in red. So it's checking that the format meets the data that's required. So if I need to transmit, enter a new bank detail here or amend a bank detail, it won't allow you to enter data that's invalid. And that includes things like in an IBAN number, it does all the checksums that are needed to ensure it's a valid IBAN number structure, and any other data fields that could be very specific to the type of payment you're making or the bank itself in terms of what they expect to be transmitted. What it does not do is check that the actual account exists at the bank. It doesn't do an external check to ensure that, although that is functionality that's on our development schedule and will be coming in over the next year. So that will be an extension. But in terms of the validity of the data, the structure of the data, and the expected outcome, B4B does have a very high standard of data checking. Just to demonstrate a difference here, it is also related to the currency. So here what I'm saying is this account, this supplier, 81001, I'm setting up as a UK payment account, and it's using a match currency. So what I'm saying is where a payment comes from Sun Systems, it's for this supplier, and it is in GBP, typically we would expect B4B to work out that this particular bank detail record is to be used as the target. Whereas if you had a supplier that potentially you pay in multiple currencies, when you pass a payment through using, say, euro, the system would then work out that it will be a different bank detail being held potentially for a different payment type based on the currency, and map that bank detail in for you. So you can actually have mixed batches that are actually sending to both the overseas and to UK at the same time, and it will break them into the correct batches for you and output the correct payment batch in the correct format for that particular type of payment. So it's got lots of smarts built in there to support you in the management of the bank detail record. What I also can do here is go and change my format. So if I jump to a European SEPA format here, European SEPA credits transfers, which is a very standard sort of European cross-border payment format, I'm just going to navigate here. I've made some changes to that bank detail when I changed the sort code. So you're seeing that what it's doing is asking me for a reason. So I'm just going to say the reason was a demo, and it keeps that change reason as part of the record in the background, and also checks that everything is correct. So now I've swapped this format to European SEPA credit transfers. When I go and have a look at the standard bank details and look at a particular record, what we'll find is that the system will now show us a different set of detail records required to the standard UK records here. So if I just go and jump out of here for a second, go and look at own bank details, for example, and then come back into my standard bank details, what we'll see is suddenly we don't just have our sort code and account number. We now have other records such as the beneficiary name, the country, BIC number, etc. Payments usage, There's many more fields here that could be relevant to the way the process works. Ultimate credit details may be needed. So this is because we're looking at a European SEPA credit transfer bank record. So I could set up an account here for 81001, maps to Euro, and this will be the bank detail it would need. And again, we have all the validation around the numbers required in our IBAN number, etc. When we do this. So it's a very strong record. Here you can see it's saying that the IBAN structure is invalid in the background. So bank detail management, very strong. We also can build in an approval process. So if we actually needed to approve a bank detail record, we can set up a approval matrix, and it will send an email to a particular user or group of users to say you have a bank detail record to approve. And until that process has been completed, the system will not allow a payment to go through. So if you've amended something, the status could be pending approval, and that will appear when you process a batch of payments, and it will ensure that that can't go through until it's been approved or reverted to where it was. So for example, here, if I just go across to another web session and I log in as a user that's set up as an approver within the system, you'll see that they have a far lower degree of access to areas of the system itself. But if I look at approval, we'll see that there is one outstanding record for approval here, and the user would have had an email passed to them saying you have something to approve. It is for Thompson International, and this is the record, and a link back into the system for that purpose. So if I go and click on here, what you'll see is it will show us an audit table of all the changes that have occurred over time for this particular record. We can see the user that actually made those changes, when they did it, the approval status, etc. So it's a very useful piece of audit control held in the database, and it includes the actual data fields that have been changed, the old value, the new value. So a very strong audit trail for the approvers to work on in terms of understanding anything they're approving. So here I could actually go and approve that record, and it will then free it up and make it ready to work for you as part of a payment batch. So that's our bank detail management within the system. Next area to look at is, if I just jump back into this other web session, so I've now got the broader access again here, is the actual payment processing itself. So first of all, you would go and generate a batch of payments within Sun Systems. So that's your standard generate payment function, picking up the suppliers that you wish to pay based on a range of suppliers or range of analysis, etc. You would decide which invoices you would include using your standard allocation marker function or your due date function within Sun Systems, and that then generates your batch. That batch is held in the Sun Systems database in its payment data tables, and B4B picks up those batches that have been generated. So you can see here I have a couple of different batches that have been picked up in my validate payment function, and this is instantaneous, so there's no file-based integration here. It reads that data immediately and understands it, and you can see that it also picks up the profile code and the profile code name that you've used. So this could be due date payments, forced payments, back payments, whatever you're using as your payment profile within Sun Systems. So once you've done that, I can then choose one of these batches that appear within B4B if I have the right permissions within the system. And when I click on the batch, it will then go and show you the detail of the actual payments that have been made in Sun as part of that process. So the batch was generated at a certain date and time, but these are the individual supplier payments that have been made as part of the batch. So you can now check this against your payment reports in Sun if you wish to, although it will be exactly the same because it is the same data set that you're looking at here directly from the tables of Sun Systems. And you can see that B4B is checking to see if there are any errors and also confirming which bank format you're likely to be processing this in based on the currency of the payment. So here we have our 81001 account that we were looking at before. It's a GBP based payment that has come through for a certain amount, and it shows us our invoice and payment reference there. And it's found a target bank account, and it's worked out it's sitting in our UK LBM format, so it knows that I'm going to transmit that file and that payment as a domestic UK to Barclays based on where the payment is actually held. If there were any mismappings here, they would appear, and they would appear as errors. So we have payment errors here. I don't have any errors, but it could say something such as bank account details missing, bank account details have been found in the wrong currency, or maybe my bank detail is waiting approval, that sort of thing. So any details that appear with an error here will not be allowed to pass through. Those records will not be valid for payment until those errors have been corrected. And one of the benefits of having our bank detail records separately to the Sun Systems environment is that you can actually make your amendments from here, go and change your bank detail records, send them for approval, get whatever needs to be sorted out, and then go and reprocess within the validate payment function, and you're ready to go, rather than having to go back into Sun Systems, reverse your payment run, make your changes, then regenerate the payment run. So it gives you much more flexibility in that process in order to manage any errors or issues that may occur. So if I have a look at my payment summary, that's the total values that will be passing through for a particular supplier. Payment details, obviously at the transaction level, and any warnings or errors. So warnings would actually show me things such as that it had reached the transaction payment limit that's applied to the bank account. Things like that would be picked up. Once I'm ready to go, I can then immediately go and process the payment. So at the top of the screen, we can go and save for format processing. This means that we're saying the batch is ready, push it off, and create a bank file from it. We can also remove selected lines from here. So if we decided we didn't want to pass particular lines through to pay at the bank yet, we can actually sort of remove them from the validation screen and allow us to pass through the rest of the data. Perhaps they're errors that you want to deal with at a later point. And we can also remove the entire batch from here if we needed to, and of course generate some reporting. So we have options, but I'm in this case actually going to just save for format processing, and that will then push all of that data through to the next stage, which is our create bank file. And this could be someone with a different role, different security logging in to do that. But if I go to the create bank file screen, this is where I'm going to push it. Now, it's giving me an error here. And the error is because I'm actually sitting currently in my European EUSCT format rather than in my UK LBM format. If that particular payment batch I'd processed had some SEPA payments in it, then yes, I could proceed to process it from here because there would be some available to me. But in this case, there wasn't. So the system makes sure that you're generating the batches and using the right detail. So I'm going to move to my Barclays detail here. And then when I have a look at my create bank file, I should be able to process that effectively in the background. So if I just log back in as the correct user, which is PS batch payment user, the system will now allow me to go and generate those files using the correct format. I forgot that I've swapped user, apologies for that. So I just go and look at my UK LBM and then go to my processing for create bank file. This will now have the batch sitting there that I processed before, ready to push to the bank. So you can see these are those transactions I passed through, and it asks me for various details here, such as the reason code. So this could be the code that gets pushed into the file that would appear on the supplier payment. That could be just a text. So I could fill in some text here. So I could say supplier payment maybe, or some such like that, maybe with a date. Or we could pick references from the supplier bank detail. So if the supplier has asked you for a particular reference to be pushed onto the file when you pay them, we can do that. We can add a text plus that reference, or your own reference, or the payment reference from Sun. So there are a number of options there as to how we process data into the file. We can decide on the format. So in this case, the actual Barclays format supports both SIF format files and BACS format files. So this is options that are built in as part of the process because we support Barclays. And then we can give it a file name. And that file name could be, payments for today or whatever, .sif. And we can save that off to a secure directory using an impersonated Windows account, which is a secure way of doing that so that the file itself cannot be accessed by other users. And you could then go and log into Barclays and process that file and upload it ready for payment. So that's the manual way of doing the payment transmission. So actually having the output file, and that can be uploaded. However, additionally, we must also remember that we could encrypt that file. So if you didn't want to transmit it directly to the bank through SSFTP, which is obviously the most secure form, and you did need to transfer it manually, You can do that, but in an encrypted format. So you are able to go and encrypt the file using a PGP encryption process if the bank supports it. And then, of course, if you access the file as part of that upload and had a look at it, you wouldn't be able to mend it. You wouldn't be able to see any particular information in there. So that's a highly secure process, particularly when you can't access the directory without the correct rights. But if you were to implement SFTP, Secure File Transfer Protocol, which is supported quite by many banks nowadays, we can actually set up a secure transmission directly to the bank system so that the file gets passed out without you having to save it off, give it a file name or anything like that. The data is not written to disk, passes as an encrypted file of data directly through the API to the bank. So a number of ways of doing that, depending on the bank, depending on the type of payments and the way you wish to implement it. But B4B supports all of that process. So I could then save the file, and we're done. And that process is now bank complete, fully auditable, fully processed, and fully validated with all the correct details and information. Our reporting structure as well. So we look at our audit reports or our payment reports. We can choose date ranges. We can have a look at different formats. We can decide what type of report we're actually going to look at. So, is it bank details? Is it payment details? So the audit reporting is very strong within B4B around the process that we have validated there. Once we've generated our payment, the next typical step, once we've processed that to the bank, could be the generation of remittance. And remittance generation is one of those things that is sort of optional. Some people don't send remittances for particular types of payments. Others would decide that they would like to do that. And the way this works is that we can set up remittance options within the B4B environment. And those remittance options can define who we're sending remittances from, how we're going to send them, and how they're defined with messages on your emails, etc., which could be different for different business units, different payment types, that sort of thing. So we have a look at the remittance options. This is a sort of an admin function. Typically, this would already be set up. You can see that we can define an email from caption. We can define the email address that those remittances will go from. So they could be from accounts payable at your organization, whatever address you'd like to use for that. And we can define the subject line for that. So you've been paid today by my company, that sort of thing. We've then got different templates that are defined for messaging. So you can set up a default message, many other messages, as many as you like. So if there is something you standardly put into the email body, if you have any queries, please contact accounts payable. Here's the address, that sort of thing. You can put that in easily into the system as a default message, but also at runtime, users can swap between messages. So you could have a Christmas message, an end of year message, whatever it is that you wish to say there. And also you could have a optional ability for the user to type in a message at runtime as well. So we've got these options. We can BCC and CC all of our messages internally if you wish to, and choose which report structure we're going to use when it generates the remittance document. So there's a built-in report designer as part of B4B that allows us to decide how your remittance will appear, how your logos appear on that, the structure of it, the design, and all of these things around that document, such as the sort order and other things like this. So very easy to do, define our remittance options, and we can link those to different profile codes within the system, that sort of thing, different business units, etc. So in order to run a remittance, all you would do is in the processing area, typically it's already configured in maintenance, we would just jump into our remittance function. And this then shows us detail for any batches of data that have been processed in the system already. And again, this is related to the format and to the business unit we're in. So these are our historically processed sets of remittances here, and you can look at the history as well. So these now are showing all criteria from the past. So you don't lose any history. If you need to go in and see what has been sent in a batch, you can actually do that. So this batch here that was back from 2015 in the system, we can still see this remittance that was generated and sent to Johnson's Shop Fitting. For the sleeper batch, another one, local batch there of mixed remittances, all to different suppliers with history, including the amount, transaction amount, and if it was emailed or printed, for example. So we have that history, and that's also useful because we can resend them within the system. So if you needed to resend a remittance somewhere because they said they haven't received it or whatever, we're able to do that very simply from within here by just choosing a particular remittance and going up here and sending the email again. So very, very easy to keep that history and to resend remittances. But to send it as a batch, it will be a new batch. You just choose the batch, you're happy, you choose them all. You would then say send. But at the bottom, we have this ability to jump between our messages very easily and also type a message here or CC it to someone internally if you wanted to, if there was no default there. So remittance processing, very simple within the system and something that is built in and part of the standard. So, you know, that's a big benefit for most users, not having to use a separate remittance processing or document management system that would pick up a payment batch and try and create those remittances from it. It's all built in to the same structure, using the same batch data and secure information on bank details that we have within B4B. So B4B, mixture of things, remittancing and payments, but obviously the payment data is the key part of the system, the ability to process mixed batches of different data, manage bank detail records effectively with the approvals, with secure validation, and most importantly, the fact that this is all occurring in a very integrated fashion with Sun Systems, picking all the data we need from suppliers and payment batches from within there, and managing a vast variety of different banks and different formats, because there are many systems that work well for BACS processing, for local processing, some that work for international. Where you have a mixture, that can become quite painful. You may need to have some things done manually, other things not done manually. So maybe your internationals, you're typing into the banking system, whereas domestic, you have a method for doing that. With B4B, it brings it all very neatly together into one secure system and one framework, which can improve efficiency and definitely improve security in terms of the type of processing that goes on a day-to-day basis. So that's the end of the demonstration of the actual product. There is much more administration capability there that I haven't delved into in this. We could obviously look at that in more detail if you needed a more customized demonstration, which certainly can be provided. So at this stage, I'll just hand back to Chris, and we'll just have a look and see if anyone has any questions. There is a questions option in the side of the GoToMeeting bar. So if anyone does have anything at this point they would like to ask, please feel free to type it in there. And also verbally, of course, if anyone wants to say a question verbally, quite happy to take those as well. So back to you, Chris.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Andrew. That was a good walk through. As you see, there's lots of functionality within the B4B solution. If you've got any questions, there is a chat box, as Andrew said. There is one that's come through to do with licensing. So that the B2B product is licensed per user. And unlike Sun Systems, if you've got a 20 user Sun Systems license, you don't need 20 users.
I'm not sure if Chris is there. However, I've just been looking at the chat and just looking to see if there's any questions. So there is actually one question that someone has asked here, and that is related to B4B functionality for writing bank details back into Sun Systems. We are able to do this. It's a very simple process using what we call the B4B service to do that on creation or approval of the bank details. Typically, you wouldn't write them all back because they're not needed in Sun, but if you just want a basic bank detail record within the Sun Systems environment, that can easily be achieved as part of an implementation. So that was one question we had.
Thanks. Must have been a bit of a communication. Yeah, a bit of a communication hip there. I was talking about the licensing. Let's say it's based on per user license, doesn't need to match your Sun Systems, and the user license comes with one bank format. So if you're only dealing with one bank, it's covered in the license. If you've got multiple banks, there's incremental costs for those licenses.
Okay. So I don't think there are any further questions at this stage. Certainly, if you do have any queries or questions in relation to B4B, please feel free to pass this through your Kik account manager, and we'd be happy to help you with that or to arrange a more personal demonstration of the system. Thank you very much for your time today. Appreciate the time it takes to join these sessions, and hopefully you found it interesting. As Chris mentioned at the beginning, we do have a series of webinars being run, so if anyone has any interest in the other Professional Advantage modules, such as bank reconciliation, please feel free to join those sessions as well, and we'll be happy to help you with those at any time. So thank you very much for your time.
Yep. Thank you, everybody. Have a good afternoon.